Congress didn't ban a CBDC, they just changed who gets to build it. And by the time you realize what their plan is, opting out may no longer be an option. See, last month, Congress passed legislation blocking the Federal Reserve from issuing a retail central bank digital currency, or CBDC, until 2030. And the celebration was immediate, because if you've never heard of a CBDC before, it's essentially a digital dollar issued by the central bank. But unlike the dollars we use today, CBDCs are programmable, meaning that a select few or even automated AI systems would determine how, when, and where your money could be spent. We're talking total surveillance, total control, which is why so many Americans oppose them. So on the surface, this legislation that just passed looked like a huge win, but I couldn't get past the question that if we really just rejected a programmable digital dollar, why then are we still building the infrastructure for a new digital financial system? Because you don't spend years building digital payment rails, rewriting the laws around digital assets, and pushing alternative digital assets unless you plan on using them. But to understand why all of this is happening and what's coming next, we first have to zoom out and look at globally why every country in the world is suddenly racing to create programmable digital currencies. And I can promise you that the answer has nothing to do with making payments faster and has everything to do with control. Not only control of its citizens, but control of the entire financial system. For the last 80 years, the dollar hasn't just been America's currency. It's been the foundation of the entire global monetary system. Oil is priced in dollars. Businesses settle international transactions in dollars. And foreign national banks hold trillions of dollars in reserves. Now, that position gives the U.S. enormous political power and leverage, but the problem is that position isn't permanent. See, over the last several years, we've watched more countries settle trade outside of dollars, create more cross-border payment options. We've seen China pour billions into new digital payment rail technology. For the first time in decades, the U.S. is facing serious competition over the future of global money. But once you understand that, something else becomes very clear. See, if the future of finance is digital, then making sure that the dollar, a digital dollar, is at the center of that future becomes the most strategic priority in the world. Which is when I realized any debate around a CBDC here in the United States isn't real. The future around a programmable digital dollar was decided a long time ago. But then the obvious question becomes, if the Federal Reserve was just blocked from issuing said digital dollar, well then who is going to step in and take their place? The answer is surprisingly simple. You let the private sector do it through stablecoins. Now, at its core, a stablecoin is simply a privately issued digital dollar, and they're pegged one-to-one to maintain a stable dollar value. But before we expand on that, it is important to call out that whether the digital dollar is taking the form of a stablecoin or a tokenized bank deposit or something else entirely is besides the point. The point is that they have built infrastructure, and once you have that infrastructure in place, it becomes very easy to swap out what runs on top of it versus starting over from scratch. Now remember, the entire reason that Americans rejected CBDCs in the first place wasn't just because they're digital, it's because they're programmable, meaning that it could be decided way above you, outside of your control, how your money moves, where and when you can spend it, how it's restricted. Now, I first warned about stablecoins being a CBDC Trojan horse well over a year and a half ago. And since then, much has changed. Since then, we've gotten the Genius Act, which, wow, what a name. You've got to give them credit for that one. But if you dig into the actual legislation and you try and understand, do these control mechanisms exist? Buried in there are the terminologies saying that any stablecoin issuer must ensure that the ability to freeze, seize, and permanently burn digital dollars exist. Freeze, seize, destroy. And they've already done it, proving that they can and will do it again. But here's the part that I keep hearing people say. I've talked to people who have told me, well, isn't it better that it's not the government, that it's a private company doing this? And to that I say, not at all. It's not necessarily safer. I mean, the Genius Act carved out stablecoins from outside of the regulatory bodies that oversee financial products. And again, you could sit here all day and say, well, they're not doing much good anyway. And I would agree with you. But now we have this gap, right? Where you have the private company saying, well, we're not the government. We can do whatever we want. And you have the government saying, well, we didn't create those, not our problem. And somewhere in the middle is you. And I know for a lot of people watching this too, that this is not some abstract concern. This is very real. You might have spent years building a retirement, decades working hard, making the right decisions. And out of all of the financial risks you thought you'd be up against, you might not have ever considered the day would come where you would have rules written into a program that would determine your access to your savings, your retirement. That's a different kind of risk than most people think about. And many people out there aren't thinking about this at all because the system isn't done being built. But by the time it is, that window to position outside of the system gets smaller and smaller. But you might still be wondering, okay, I'm with you, but how is this different than what we have today? My bank could freeze my account, which is true, but you still have processes, compliance, legal, not saying they're perfect, far from it. But the processes that exist today were designed around a human mind. But a programmable financial system, well, that changes everything. See, once the rules are built into that software, we're talking about widespread control on a scale that we can't even imagine. We all watched the bank accounts get frozen during the Canadian trucker convoy protests. And whether you agreed with them or not isn't the point. The point is that yes, restrictions can and do happen today, but they still are a manual process. It's not instant, it's not widespread, and there's still human involvement. Now imagine those same rules, those capabilities built directly into the infrastructure that the very money itself exists on. See, over the last few years, central banks, institutions, regulatory authorities, they haven't just been talking about CBDCs. They've been talking about something much bigger. It's called a unified ledger, where everything from bank transactions to bonds, stocks, real estate, payments, all exist on one programmable unified ledger. This infrastructure would be so massive in scope that the obvious question becomes, how do you have something like this one unified ledger, this infrastructure that would be processing billions of payments instantly, as well as verifying identities and identifying compliance risks, reducing fraud, right? Everything else. The question becomes, who or what is going to manage all of that? This is where it gets really bad. See, central banks controlling your money, well, that's already bad enough, but at least there was a human element to it. But now, financial regulators are openly discussing having AI integrated into everything from fraud reduction to identity verification. You don't think that it's going to be wrapped in to whatever programmable system they have coming next? Meaning that AI could be determining the future of whose accounts get frozen or what and where you can spend your money. And if it happens to you, good luck fighting it. I mean, it's almost impossible today. I don't know about you, but for me, I call even a small company and I get the AI voice assistant. It's rare these days to even pick up the phone and have someone else human answer on the other end. You think you're going to have any luck fighting it when your account gets frozen or seized? Now, given all of this info, you might be wondering why? Why would anyone possibly support this? But stablecoins are being pitched as something that's faster, instant payments around the globe, something that's accessible to everyone. And historically, when we look at humankind, any kind of advancement often is sold as one thing at the beginning and ultimately becomes something else the longer it goes on. See, smartphones were sold as convenience. They didn't always mean that you had a tracking device on you with all of your digital data accessible.